Rangers Nation, thank you so much again for listening to Texas Rangers Fanatic podcast. And right now I am joined by Mr. Sean Bass of 1310 The Ticket. Sean, thank you so much for joining me. It's been quite a boring week, hasn't it?
Anything but. I'll say this, though, Alex, and it's good to talk to you as always. They're making us now say 96.7 FM, The Ticket. Like 96.7 and 1310, like they've swapped it because I guess we got to get cool and hip with all the kids and promote our FM frequency ahead of our established old school AM 1310. But everybody listens to our app, so it doesn't really matter. But 1310 rolls off the tongue way better, I think.
96.
Old habits die hard.
I mean, it took me a while to even think 96.7. I keep thinking I was saying it wrong, and then it's like, 1310, right. Boom, snap.
Well, finger. I mean, it took, I don't know, 20. I mean, we've been around 26 years. It probably took the better part of 26 years for us to just get an FM signal because it was like 1310 for a while. Then we had 1310 and 1700, which was like 2 AM signals. Then it went 1310 to 104.1 FM. I guess that was about 15 years ago. But, and then, then we took 96.7, which was a bit of a cleaner signal in DFW. But now that we have like a good AM and a good FM, everybody's streaming things now. So it's like, that's very
everybody's got to hear the clear-cut opinions of how this season has gone. Because, you don't want a ruffled AM signal.
That's true. I mean, depending on where you are, you can hear like Tejano in the background in Dallas. So, I mean, sometimes it's kind of nice, like a little production value, a little, little Tejano behind your HSOs. But yeah, dude, it's been a week. I mean, even this past Sunday when Texas was going for a sweep of Colorado and you're thinking, God, they're above 500 and man, who knows what could happen in a weird shortened season. But, some of the pitching has gone wrong. We can talk about Mike Minor, I'm sure. But, I mean, just this Padres series, the home and home, Texas loses all of them, a couple of extra inning games, and then, the 3-0 grand slam heard around the world, and then 3 more grand slams in the next 3 days. I mean, of course, Texas is going to be part of like a dubious chapter in baseball history. It just makes so much sense for our franchise. But we can start wherever you want because we could probably talk for an hour.
Was this the most emotionally draining week you can think of as far as Texas Rangers baseball? I'm sure there has been a week, and maybe regular season is the best way to put it. Maybe forget postseason wise. Yeah. But regular season wise, I'm trying to think if there is, and I'm talking a week. I'm not talking about like one series. I mean, Technically this was a series, but just in general, from everything around, from the noise outside, social media to on the field, I just cannot think in my mind anything that, you might have maybe the Blue Jays. Even the Blue Jays series during the regular season was one game.
Oh, you're talking about the punch?
Yeah, that was just really like a 2-day span.
Right.
So that's not really.
The news cycle sort of, had fun with it and spit it right out, and everybody moved on.
Right. It's Sunday afternoon to Monday, everybody reacting. But, you're talking – think about when you woke up Monday morning.
Yeah.
Do you even think?
No, I was more worried about the Mavericks in the playoffs and the Stars in the playoffs. That was kind of top of mind. I was kind of happy that my baseball team was 500. But I think as far as this week goes, I think this is the most embarrassed I've been as a follower of the club. I love the club more than any sports entity. And I've been more embarrassed about my franchise this week than I have in my whole existence. And that's been a really weird thing. Now, there's been times where locally there's been a lot of criticism and a lot of angst over how things operate, say the trade deadline. Maybe somebody's mad at John Daniels. Maybe, the trade of Yu Darvish. I know that, drew a lot of ire a couple of years ago. But that's also part of like the big tapestry of what's going on in the sport, because that's just part of the trade deadline. Every other market has their own worries and frustrations, but this is kind of a singular Rangers national story that has just been lingering for the whole week simply because the Padres continue to hit grand slams. I mean, everybody circles back to the 3-0 Fernando Tatis debate, and it's been talked to death, but it's just so disheartening knowing that the manager of our club said the trigger word unwritten rules in the post-game comments. I kind of understood where he was coming from, and I don't think he's just like this old dinosaur curmudgeon like some are out there that a lot of the younger generation and a lot of the smart baseball minds sort of rail against. But Woody did himself and the club no favors just by saying two words, unwritten rules. And the fact that everybody latched on that, and then everybody in this day and age of social media was able to dunk on the team repeatedly, and it gets exacerbated by poor play, a lack of future as far as like talent in the pipeline. Because like I said when we were talking before we started, you have the Rangers and the Padres playing. The Padres are fun, young, exciting. They've built it the right way. They've also spent money by going and getting Machado, and they traded a while back for Fernando Tatis, who's like one of the best young players in baseball. So
James Shields.
Yeah, I mean, my God, they're fun. They bounce. They're electric. They have new awesome uniforms that everybody wants to see. And, and it's not just those two on the left side of the infield. I mean, Patino, who came in and threw last night's an exciting young arm. They have Paddock, who's just a terrific story, and he's probably going to be a top-of-the-rotation guy one day. And I'm kind of happy because I like A.J. Preller, who is one of JD's former assistants, and I'm happy that things are finally falling into place with him because if you look at the Padres when he got there, ownership wanted to put butts in seats, and they made him get a little splashy in free agency, and a lot of that didn't work out too well. But at the same time, he was able to build up the farm system, and people like you and me who are really into the minor league side of things, we got to see San Antonio, the Missions, for a long time in the Texas League. So we saw all these kids come up alongside the Rangers prospects in Frisco, and it just feels like there's a lot more potential and depth. Not to say the Rangers system doesn't have depth, but you feel like that the Padres have had difference makers. Hell, Mackenzie Gore is one of the best pitchers I've seen in the minors, period, and he's going to be in their rotation sooner rather than later, and he's going to be a problem for the whole league. And I just feel like Texas doesn't have enough of that. Not to say that there's not going to be big leaguers in the system, but point being is that the Padres are fun, and right now the Rangers are just boring. I mean, outside of Joey Gallo doing special things at the plate or throwing people out from right field, or your Lance Lynn start every fifth day, there's not really a ton to get excited about outside of maybe seeing Solak make some good contact. Jonathan Hernandez come in, pitch late in the game, and maybe Rafael Montero, who's been pretty decent in the closer spot outside of a blown one a few nights ago by giving up a walk-off grand slam to Machado. So it's just a tough time, and then everything gets exacerbated by the trade deadline looming, and Mike Minor's lost all of his value because he just can't find his stuff anymore. And then if you want to get into bigger picture stuff, I mean, there's the constant drumbeat of a section of the fandom railing against John Daniels. And
like every year.
I think there's some blame to be had at his feet just because they have not developed enough position players as far as like drafting and developing. That's a real criticism. I think he's done everything he can in his power to make this team as good as it can be, but that's tough to do when you have ownership who really hasn't wanted to spend too much or get outbid the past few years, because really this whole offseason was built around revamping the rotation, which JD did a great job of, and then going to get two frontline free agents, and they whiffed on both. And then you're just left with the rest, and it doesn't look good right now. And then you also had the owner speaking earlier this week. Was it Liebman actually got in front of some reporters, which is the rarest thing for this front office group. And a lot of it just reading the Evan article, and I didn't sit in the press conference. I don't know if you were plugged into that, Alex, but from what I got from the story, it just felt like a lot of hollow lip service and them kind of basically in a roundabout way saying, look, revenues are going to be down, so don't expect us to spend again. And that's just – so all of those things just glommed together has just made this a really disheartening time.
I look at last year during the trade deadline, and of course one of the biggest was Mike Minor, but think about Hunter Pence, who was a potential – I mean, it was a one-year deal, and so there was rumors of him going to Tampa Bay. I don't know how true that was, but I heard that.
Then he got hurt.
Right. I mean, that was back in June, and then he was, by around the trade deadline, was pretty good, was back to go. And then
But he got hurt at the All-Star break. Like, he made the All-Star team but didn't play in the All-Star game, right? Because of injury. Like, he was named as the
was that
starting DH of the American League All-Star team, but he was hurt at the time. So, you have a veteran who was hurt that sort of squashed. And Texas was still kind of competitive at the time, too. So last year was a weird thing because you also knew that ownership wanted to maybe have a somewhat alluring team in free agency after a somewhat competitive year because they wanted to put butts and seats in the new stadium. Alas, 2020 happens and we have a pandemic and nobody's in the stadium. So it's just this whole thing has been very 2020, if you just want to put it in a nutshell.
they're 10-14. It doesn't feel like they're 10-14.
It feels like they're like a 6 or 7 win team.
No, I know.
Like you see the bottom of our division, like where the Angels and the Mariners are. It feels like we should be below them at times, and on certain days where the offense just is so bad, you're like, my God. I mean, I feel like the Mariners' offense is more potent than this one, and that's not a good place to be right now.
I was looking at this up. They've played 24 games. 21 of those games have been decided less than 5 runs.
Yeah.
16 of those games have been decided by 3 runs or less.
And it's also crazy because if you look at the team's run differential, I think I'd have to look it up. I think it might be like 3rd worst in the American League or somewhere there, because that's where it feels like they should be, like bottom 3 team in the American League.
Right, and I'm actually, as far as Major League Baseball, what they do on their standings is, and I know they revamped the way the standings look, but they give you a based on expected win-loss based on run differential.
Right.
They're saying the Rangers should be 9-15, which is like a game off. I mean, just based on runs scored by runs allowed, which still doesn't feel like that. They've had a couple of 4-run wins also.
Yeah, those people should watch these games. They might have a different
but that's what makes this week so crazy, is because you feel like the Padres just annihilated the Rangers out of their shoes. No. They won by 10 on Monday, but a 2-run loss on Tuesday, a 3-run loss on Wednesday, but because of a walk-off grand slam, and then yesterday a 1-run loss, and even one of those 4-run losses was against Oakland on another walk-off grand slam.
Right. They have a grand slam issue. Was that 6 they've given up this year?
6. Next team is 2, the Cubs.
What's the record for a season? I know the Padres set the consecutive grand slam record with 4. I'm curious to see what the most grand slams allowed in a year is.
I know it's the most they've allowed in 20 years.
I feel like the Rangers, if there's a rule to be, I guess a record to be set this year, the Rangers might actually set that one
in a 60-game season.
Yeah, that's
think about 102 games more where you'd be sitting at this rate.
And that's the thing, like that's another thing that really like is getting at me. And I've been a little bit more vocal about this than I ever have. I've always kind of quietly reserved some judgment for Chris Woodward, but I feel like there's been a lot of instances in this, 60-game season where everything's a little bit more important. I mean, the games are weighted more. There's been some managerial things that I've just shook my head at, like, why is this happening? And it's not just like lifting Shin-Soo Choo for Rob Refsnyder in the 10th inning 2 nights ago, which that was just effing incredible that happened. I don't care how left-handed the pitcher is. Shin-Soo Choo should have had that. And because Danny Santana then argued and got ejected, and then Calhoun.
Right. Then you could have put in, like, the Refsnyder for Calhoun was understandable because he still feels a little with lefties. So if he pinched hit Refsnyder, I know people would go crazy, but it's like, look, that's a comfortability type thing.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who's an all-star in the past, the recent past in Shin-Soo Choo, and somebody who, even if he's, not comfortable against the lefty or a certain type lefty, he's still going to give you a deep at bat. Right. He might get out. He'll still see like 4 or 5 to 9 pitches, depending on what happens. So that was puzzling. I mean, just that alone, but I go back to Jordan Lyles' last start where I think didn't he strike out the side in the first inning, and then everything went to hell in the second where he was giving up a lot of hard contact, and Woody just let him go. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I understand. I think that was game 1, right?
That was.
The the Padres series, and I'm like, okay, I understand not wanting to burn your bullpen after having to use some relievers in the Colorado series. Totally understandable, but at the same time, this is 60 games. This is like
you're waving the white flag.
At that moment, you were a 500 team, and Houston hadn't totally run away from you just yet. Like, make that a bullpen game. I mean, you have a taxi squad. You can make some roster moves if need be. And he just left them out there, and they put up a 5 spot. And when you put up a 5 spot on the Texas Rangers right now, it feels like 10 because of how poor their offense is. And, you know, it's weird, like, to get back to the 3-0 debate. I mean, golly, I know it was a 7-run game, but if you look at what happened Sunday against Colorado, Texas was down 10-2. And they scored some late runs in a screwy way, and didn't they bring the tying run to the plate in the ninth?
Scott Heineman was the tying run, and
he
lined one right off. He lined it right off of Estevez. I mean, he hit it pretty hard.
Right, but not that scares you. But the point is no matter how bad an offense is in Major League Baseball, they're still professional hitters, and 7 runs is not insurmountable. I think just yesterday was it the Blue Jays and Phillies had a game where I think the Phillies were up by 7, and then they got caught and lost, and
the Cleveland Indians, probably one of the worst offenses in baseball, next to the Rangers, who
somehow
weeks ago was worse.
Yeah,
it put a 10 spot this year.
It's because weird stuff happens like that. That's why it's just ridiculous to say, "Oh, we're up 7 runs." You know, I'm going to get mad that you swung away on 3-0. Now, Jace Tingler said that the biggest reason he was upset with Tatis Jr. was because, you know, he ignored a take sign from his coach. Okay, understand that. But then Eric Hosmer looks into the Rangers dugout and says, "I'll talk to him." And I don't know if you saw the video of him trying to lecture Fernando. Look, I like Eric Hosmer. I mean, hell, he had a grand slam last night. He's won a ring. He's been a good vet. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the career of Eric Hosmer. It is going to pale in comparison to what Fernando Tatis Jr. is. And when you're trying to rein in somebody that is going to do nothing but make your sport more attractive with just how he plays the game and trying to make him more boring and more stodgy and like have an old school mindset. It's just, that ain't it, man. That's not what baseball should be about. I mean, we need to make this like the freaking, you know, like the Dominican Winter Leagues or down in Venezuela or just, I mean, where bat flips are cool and there's emotion and, you know, people react to things like that. That's the way it needs to go because there's so much incredible young talent in baseball. We don't need them to be robots. And, you know, the whole marketing of players is a whole other issue. But Tatis Jr. just being himself is marketing enough, you know? I mean, him dancing in the dugout the other night after hitting yet another home run against Texas.
That clubhouse is fun.
That's what you want to see, man. Yeah. That you put that on, I don't know, the cut or whatever, you know, social media video thing you have and make that a thing. Don't just like when I tune into MLB Network, like right when the season's starting and they're showing all the talent and it's just like a blur of the montage of like all the great players in the game. And there's some incredible ones. How about you spend just like, I don't know, a minute on one of them? Just show me how amazing Ronald Acuna is. Show me how electric Tatis is. I mean, show me some defensive plays by Manny Machado. I mean, just show me Cody Bellinger's swing and then Cody Bellinger smiling and then like goofing around. Like the Yelly and Belly postseason commercial they had was kind of dumb and not written well. But the fact that they spent the time to say, hey, here's 2 of our best players. Let's have them interact with each other. Even if it was corny as hell, that's what you need to be doing. You don't just need to be blurring everybody past you saying, look at all this talent. Hey, it's great. No, you need to like invest in the personality of some of these guys because – you know, baseball players aren't always the sharpest people. Trevor Bauer proves that all the time. But I like Trevor Bauer because Trevor Bauer has something to say. Yes. You know, baseball needs to steer into that instead of saying, hey, don't wear the Joe Kelly Nikes before your start or we're going to get mad and suspend you. And no, you need to just totally like embrace that WWF things like that happen sometimes. Like you need people wearing the black hat sometimes, and that's okay too.
I love the Trevor Bauer, Ben Verlander little Twitter beef that went on a few days. I think.
I guess I didn't see that.
Yeah, so because I don't know if it was Justin. I think it was Ben actually was calling him out for wearing the cleats, and then they kind of went back and forth. Okay. Yeah, Ben Verlander. I guess he's still playing. I don't know if he is.
All right. I know Justin's hurt, so.
Well, I mean.
I mean, if it was Justin saying it, I would have a lot more interest than Ben. But
yeah, we're fighting your battles.
Right, but I mean, just not only let the players play, let the players express themselves a little bit, and don't just try to be the fun police, because everybody's like, oh, the NFL's the no fun league. Well, the NFL's actually come pretty far in like accepting coordinated celebrations and finally getting on the right side of the racial injustice debate. Finally, I mean, I guess better late than never, but Major League Baseball is just, it seems very stale. Like, they need to appeal to a younger audience, and by, having a national debate and having some people say that Fernando Tatis Jr. was wrong to swing away when he was doing nothing but help his team win, it sends the wrong message, and it's just bad. And the fact that the Rangers were just the big canvas for everybody to, put their own personal graffiti on and give their own opinion, it just makes you feel worse, because no matter what, everybody's dumping on your favorite team, and no fan base likes to feel like that.
And I agree, is the side that, at the end of the day, because people are saying, oh, just Tatis swing away. If your manager gives you the take sign, I know you're a young player, you're not going to override him, and you're going to take it. So if you miss a sign, yes, that is on. That's the only thing Tatis Jr. did wrong.
Yeah.
And that only is because his manager told him to take.
Right.
I wouldn't have initiated that.
Yeah, that's the thing. The problem is telling him to take in that situation.
Right.
You should never be even telling your player to take, because you're up 7. Now, if you're up by 15, okay, it might be a little bit of a different conversation just to move the game along a little bit. But what if he swings on 3-0 and pops up and we get an out and we can just all move along? I mean, there's no right answer.
What would have happened if he had just popped out?
Or what would have happened
instead of a grand slam? And actually, looking at the pitch, Nicasio's pitch, people are saying it was right down the middle. I was looking at it again. It wasn't really right down the middle. It was more so, I mean, it wasn't like on a corner, but it was in the lower outside quadrant.
It was, but Tatis is just.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
you're not safe.
You're not throwing
anywhere
cheese.
Close to the plate. Yeah, no, and that's the thing about. And what a weird side note that is. Nicasio, after being the person that gave up the 3-0 grand slam heard round the world, he just vanishes and goes back home without
personal reasons.
No real explanation, which is kind of weird. And I think who they call up Garcia, the hard throwing right hander, who I mean, he's not terrific, but he throws
pitched
97.
Okay yesterday.
He throws 97. I mean, I'm not going to say no to a guy that can do that. So, it's just.
And then they're talking about throwing 1-0 and 2-0 sliders, and that's apparently an unwritten rule.
Okay.
Yeah, you didn't hear that? San Diego Padres players are saying, oh, Nicasio's throwing 1-0 and 2-0 sliders. And apparently that you're not supposed to do that.
So you can't try to throw something that breaks to get a guy to roll over and hit into a double play.
That's exactly everybody's response.
I guess nothing makes sense. Nothing does make sense in 2020. So the fact that we're having to have these conversations is just freaking stupid, and I'm just tired of it. And I want to focus on all the good. I mean, Mike Trout is doing now. He has dad powers. I mean, we need to be focusing on things like that. The fact that the Orioles, my God, are 500 last I checked. That's insane, man. Like that roster is 500. Like, we need to be celebrating that, even if it's just for the here and now. And also, what's kind of crazy, if you look up and down the standings, outside of a few teams that are surprisingly 500, it really feels like form is holding despite it being a short season. All the teams you kind of expect to be near the top 2 spots of each division are. And I mean, if that form holds, obviously the Rangers won't be in the postseason because they don't deserve to be. But also, dude, I love the playoffs, and we're going to get more playoffs this year. So if all those good teams are in the playoffs, that's going to make it a better product. So I just hate that we get bogged down in all this dumb minutia when we should be celebrating a sport, and baseball just can't get out of its own way.
Watch the Toronto Blue Jays. They've won 5 in a row as of right now. That's like I wouldn't say they're maybe you could say they're sort of the American League version of the San Diego Padres.
Yeah. No, with young talent, they're the sons of former greats, and it's weird because like everybody was just salivating over Vlad Jr. and he's still going to be a terrific player. But God, looking at Cavan Biggio and looking at Bo Bichette, like I would buy stock in those guys more than Vlad Jr. just because I think from a body type they're going to be able to mature a little bit better instead of Vlad Jr. possibly being a little too big to do some of the things you think he's going to do. But you're right. I mean, the Blue Jays just alone with their young talent is interesting. They're in a tough division, but also the story of them
squeak into the playoffs. Top
maybe
8 teams make it.
But even just their story of not playing at Rogers Center and having to be vagabonds for a while, and finally getting a home in Buffalo. But then they're having to apologize for saying the homeless Blue Jays for a while. Like, didn't they have T-shirts that said that? Which, okay, that might not be the most sensitive thing, but it's true. They didn't have a home for a while, and the fact that they're playing in a AAA park and it actually looks kind of okay, and it's such a hitter's haven, which is. Rogers Center was a pretty good hitter's park too, but the fact that they're in such a smallish park that people are, there's like 3 or 4 home runs per game on average there, which that's exciting. That's interesting to me. I want to focus on stuff like that and not, listening to Chris Russo's side with the ancient mindset of taking on 3-0, but whatever. It's hopefully we can, move on somehow. Like, thank God. My big hope tonight against the Mariners when Texas plays them is they simply just don't give up another grand slam, just so we don't worry about that. I hope even if they lose, I just hope it's a very nondescript night. I'm tired of my team being the punching bag for not just baseball fans, but really sports fans. Sports fans have had a field day with the Rangers this year because of this topic.
It's crazy because, and when you here's the thing, you still have 36 games left. So you're still not even halfway through.
Boy,
but
it's going to fall off the cliff next week, Alex.
Yeah, no, I know.
Schedule, you got find me the wins. There might be 1 or 2 just because it's professional sports, but 4 against Oakland, don't like that. 3 against Dodgers, really don't like that. Then who's after that? You guessed it, Houston.
You still have 10 against Houston
you have
in September.
10. Look, okay, yeah, you could feasibly fight them, get yourself in a position to where you can maybe fight for a second place spot. But in all reality, this thing's going to fall off the map next week, which, big picture, it's probably the best thing for the future of this franchise, just to clearly be defined as a seller. Clearly say, okay, this isn't working. This is a bad team. We didn't need to not only just make trades, we need to maybe reevaluate what's going on macro instead of just this season micro. And and it's weird. I don't want our club to lose because, like I said, they're my favorite sports entity. When they lose, it kind of pisses me off and ruins my day and then the next morning. But the fact is, tanking wouldn't be the worst thing because they've tried to hang on and stay competitive for a long time now. Like, if you really look at the arc of what the Rangers have been since really 2009, they've always, outside of a year in 2014 where everybody got hurt and they were terrible, which was also the Wash firing year. That was also another weird week in Ranger history. But, I think this one's worse, and for a lot of different reasons. And a lot of it is because I feel like this organization, by missing out on big free agents this offseason, is left holding the bag and not knowing what they are. And if you just try to rebuild kinda and go after free agents kinda and just hope to be maybe a wild card team, that doesn't really get anybody going. If you're going to do something, either go all in on spend like crazy and get the best players possible, or tear it down and just put all your chips in the development side of things. And because if you do one of those things, that lets your fan base know, okay, we're doing something with conviction and you can get on board with this. Even if it means losing and tearing down and being bad for a number of years, at least we're trying something. And I think fans can be a lot more forgiving of that, but just sort of this middle ground since 2016 when they were last a playoff team, I just feel like fans don't know whether they're fish or foul, and that's really that's a really tough place to be as a fan.
So do you clean house after this season? It's very funky because to me, I feel like, I'm not saying you give them another chance next year, but I feel like, first of all, who's really vital on this roster that other teams for this shortened season is going to want to go out? Now, you do have guys whose contracts are expiring after this year. So guys theoretically, Mike Minor, though I don't know who would want to take a chance on there. Shin-Soo Choo would be an okay veteran for a club to have that veteran presence.
Outside of Lynn, I think he's the veteran that probably has the most value for a winning team that's trying this year. But when you said clean house, my idea wasn't player-wise, which I think that's going to happen just over the next year or two. When you said clean house, my thought was top to bottom. like organizationally. I mean, I honestly think this ownership group is in a position now that they have the new ballpark that the taxpayers spent half of. I think they're in a position now where they're probably going to try to sell in the next few years. My real question is John Daniels here to see yet another reboot of a rebuild? And he's in a weird position because I love JD. I think he's been a fantastic GM. He's given us the best decade-plus baseball we've ever had as an organization. People always want to detract, and they take the Nolan side over JD, which is just the oldest, stupidest argument out there. Because yes, is JD perfect? Has he hit on every trade? No. I mean, have they not done great at developing some talent at the lower levels? Absolutely, that is a problem. But all in all, he's been a very good GM, and he's more often than not done the right thing. But at the same time, okay, so we're going to ask him to tear it down either this. And that's another thing with this trade deadline. I don't even know if there's going to be a robust market for anything just because it's a year of a pandemic. You don't have any minor league season, so you're losing a year of prospects developing, and so many teams are kind of in it. I don't know how many buyers or sellers you're going to have. I mean, we're 10 days away from the trade deadline. Are you seeing hot stove news out there on a regular basis? There's nothing. I feel like a market is not developing, and if it does, it's going to develop late, which makes me think it's going to be kind of a light trade deadline. So, okay, you have that. So if you're going to make a big splashy move to maybe alter your franchise, it might happen in the winter. Well, the question is I know JD got extended a few years ago, but is the ownership group going to allow him to see out the end of his contract? And if so, it's only a few more years, and the rebuild's going to take a lot longer. So is he going to tear down, understanding that by completely like stripping things down and starting over in a way that seals his fate, that he's probably going to lose his job? So is he going to try to leave the situation better long-term for the next guy? Like, that's a hard thing to do when it's not just you, but it's your assistants and your scouts and all your baseball ops people that have a job, that want that security of knowing they're going to be able to show up to work the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. So is he going to say, you know what, fuck it, we're just going to tear everything down. We're going to go Marlins. We're going to do what the Astros did in the past. We're going to try to do what the Cubs did in the past. But that takes, or the Padres even now, that takes years and years, and it doesn't always work. So if he's going to do that, he's almost sealing his own fate, because in all likelihood, if the big club isn't winning, which it doesn't look like it's going to win for a long time, especially if you tear it down, he's going to lose a job. And a lot of his people around him are going to lose a job. And we're going to have another GM to try to reboot this whole thing. So really, it's not a good situation for anybody right now. But as much as I want John Daniels to turn things around magically, I just see there's not many desirable pieces here right now. And Lance Lynn, you could get a pretty good bounty for, I would imagine. But again, what kind of market are you going to have in this weird year? Joey Gallo could probably bring you back a lot, but are you going to pony up the money to keep him here long term to be a building block, or are you going to try to like maximize on his value now to try to like get a boatload of prospects? And it's not an easy answer any way you look at it. And boy, I don't envy the guy at all. I just know something has to change, because as much as we are close to the club and we like the Willie Calhouns and Nick Solaks and some of the younger guys on the system, it doesn't have the feel like that there's a lot of building blocks and a lot of stars that are going to lead this thing into prosperity down the road 2, 3, 4 years. It just feels like it's just more spinning our wheels in mediocrity, and something's got to give.
It's just a flat feeling, and when you
boring.
Talk to them, right? Exactly. When you talk to them,
it's just a boring franchise.
Exactly. So, and when you talk to them, so like, you know, guys like Nick Solak, Luis Garcia, those types of, Nick Solak and Luis Ortiz. We have a special guest here today.
My little daughter made a cameo. She's a ham. Sorry about that.
You are totally fine. I'm sure she had a blast this week watching.
Oh my God. She's not even aware of half the stuff Daddy watches.
I envy her sometimes.
Yeah. I know, like, that's the weird thing. We didn't have sports for so long, and we're like, oh God, you know, what are we gonna do? But really, during the time of no sports, I was listening to more music and, you know, watching more television shows and enjoying quiet time and, you know, barbecuing more and smoking meats and, you know, just focusing on other things that you feel like you neglect, and then all the sports come back at once, and it's just like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. Like we have the Stars and Mavericks and playoff games every night, and the Rangers are back, and oh my God, like I didn't even think we were gonna have baseball for a while. Now it's here, and we're gonna have football. I don't know. It's just, it's sometimes I think, man, if I ever get out of sports media, I'm just gonna maybe watch a sport, and that's it, because I've had my fill for 20 years. Like trying to as I say, eat the elephant every day, because you can never finish the elephant. That's just how it is. But it's overwhelming.
But I mean, just going back to talking when you have those Zoom calls, you're talking with Luis Ortiz, you're talking with Nick Solak. They keep saying the same thing. The offense is close. Okay, well, you've been saying that for 2-3 weeks. At what point do you take that step forward? Where is and you get those 6 or 7 run games, and then next game it dissipates.
Well, and you're getting the 6 and 7 run games because the crooked number innings are happening because of errors. They're happening because of walks, which is great. I mean, I'm pro walk, but it's not like they're just hitting the ball hard consistently and just driving pitchers out of the game. They score runs in squirrely ways. I mean, when Willie tore his hammy, and which could keep him out for the rest of the year for all we know.
Pretty much.
I mean, he had a little nubber out in front of the plate, and a throwing error pulled the first baseman off the bag, and he was safe, and that's why the run scored. That's how a lot of the Rangers' runs are coming, not from gap doubles and home runs, which
yesterday was an exception, I would say.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of those guys were saying this was the worst loss of the season, because the way they fought back a couple of times. And I mean, it's good to see Trevi, who we've seen grow as a professional, and I think he might be a pretty good backup catcher one day. I don't think he's ever going to be an all. I mean, I would love to be wrong. I don't think he's ever going to be an all-star, and I think he's the type of keeper, to have in your organization. There's nothing wrong with him as your number 2. It was good to see him do some things. It was good to see Nick Solak hit a big home run. Like Gallo tied the game with a home run the other night, nearly hit a grand slam. So maybe being outside with warm weather, the ball's jumping a little bit more. But really outside of Gallo and maybe Todd Frazier and Chu, there's not a lot of just natural power that's going to scare anybody. And that, I think, by having a lack of power in your lineup in general, makes pitchers pitch a little bit more aggressively. And when guys like Willie Calhoun are hitting the ball hard and at people, and Elvis is hitting the ball hard and at people, and then you have Odor hitting 3rd to 6th, which don't even get me started on that. Look, I understand there's positive
people
things.
Are saying oh, he's doing better. I'm like, well, that's a comparison. If I'm 250 pounds and I lost 2 pounds.
Right, which, I mean.
Yeah, he's playing better.
I'm happy when I am a couple pounds lighter when I get up in the morning, but by the end of the day.
I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong.
By the end of the day,
better.
It's all back. That's the thing. You wake up, it's 2:53. You go to bed, it's 2:57. You're like, what the hell happened? Well, the day happened, and Odor is what he is. We know what he is. And I know that everybody got really excited about Derek Dietrich, but look.
Like a 1-2 game pony.
Derek Dietrich is average at best. Top side, he's average. He will hit for a little bit of power. I think he's a good teammate. He might be a good role player to have, but Derek Dietrich is not somebody that's just going to take the position from Rougned Odor and never sees it. I mean, I think Nick Solak could maybe be that guy, but he's just figuring out big league pitching still. And the problem is as much as I like Leote's going to be a great defender. I don't think he's ever going to hit as a center fielder like you want a young center fielder to hit. I love Anderson Tajeda. We saw a glimpse of him, but he's got a lot of swing and miss. I mean, he's never going to be somebody that I think is going to be an all-star. I think he's going to be a big leaguer. He's not going to be an all-star, though. I think the all-star hopes in the system are Sam Huff. I don't know what Shirt and Apostle is going to be. He has a lot of swing and miss, too, but he's got some crazy pop. But again, where's he going to play? And then another problem with his roster right now, too, and I think a big reason the offense is kind of janky a lot of nights is because you have so many dudes playing out of their natural position. You're asking them to play – Danny Santana, God bless him, is not a center fielder. But I mean, he's not playing it now because of the forearm
issue, yeah.
But But to start the year, like, okay, he can do it. He did it some last year, but he is not a traditional center fielder. Nick Solak is not a traditional center fielder. Gallo's moved all over the place. I think he's finally settling in as a right fielder, which is where he should be. But there's just so many dudes around the diamond. Like Todd Frazier is not a natural first baseman.
No.
Derek Dietrich sucks at first base, but they had to play him there because they felt like they needed to get him in. The problem is your shortstop isn't very good anymore, and that kills me to say that because I love Elvis Andrus. We all do. Rougned Odor hasn't been good for a number of years, and I think everybody's sick of him, but because of his contract and the sunk cost in him, he's still playing. So you just have all these dudes playing out of position, and the ones that are playing their natural positions just aren't very good. So all in all, it just looks bad. And the problem is the starting pitching's actually been pretty good. Like Kyle Gibson, outside of giving up the grand slam the other night, pitched pretty well. Lance Lynn should have got a win the other night, but he didn't get any run support. And, I think there's good winning pieces in the bullpen. There's not enough of them. But when you're up by a run, you have such a thin margin for error. It's, these guys are bullpen pitchers for a reason. If they were better pitchers, they'd be starters. And you can't just assume that everybody you bring in is going to be locked down every night. Some relievers are going to give up runs. It happens to every team. I just feel like this offense never gets an early lead. They never put up a bunch of crooked numbers until it's like comeback mode to make the score look cosmetically better. And it's just heading into this series with the Mariners, I feel like they might win 2 out of 3 just because they're playing another bad team, which optically will look weird because, like, let's say they win 2 of 3 this week and they'll be 12
and 15,
which isn't terrible. Like, I kind of assumed that's where they would be at this point in the season, but man, it wouldn't feel like a 12 and 15 team. And nobody's walking. The problem is nobody's walking through that door. That's the problem. You're not saying, hey, we got this kid. He's ready. They're bringing up some of their pitchers that have been hurt in the past just to get them some development this year because there's no minor leagues. Who was it? They brought up Colwyn and Vanasco and just the other day Kyle Cody, but none of those guys I don't think are going to pitch this year. So all it is just getting them around the actual guys who can play and some of the dudes in the satellite camp just to give them some baseball action instead of sitting on their ass like Hans Kraus, who I love Hans Kraus. I think he could be a future stud, but he's not in the alternate camp, and that's another guy who I thought would be a much better prospect at this point, but because of injury and maybe a lack of development, he's just it's just another guy. I really thought Jonathan Hernandez was going to be a very good starting pitcher, and I'm glad that he's developed into a weapon in the bullpen, and it's great. But as far as the pitchers go, you got to develop some of these guys into starters. They've done a good job of actually turning guys into good bullpen players or good bullpen pitchers. They did it with Pete Fairbanks, and they traded him away to get Nick Solak. That's a great trade.
Yep.
I think DeMarcus Evans is going to be a closer. I'm surprised he hasn't been called up yet, to be quite honest with you. I don't know why.
I'm scratching my head.
He's on the 40, right? Yeah. Alex Spees is not on the 40, I don't think.
I don't think so either.
But they gave him a number in the 40s during summer camp, which makes you think that he might have something. And what we saw of him, it moves and he throws hard. I think he has every opportunity to do something like Luis Garcia or be better than him, but because he's not on the 40, he hasn't been activated yet. Like the Jimmy Hergets of the world do nothing for me. And I know Ian Jabot gets a lot of innings. He does nothing for me. Like if this thing really falls off the cliff, I want to see some of those guys either traded or DFA'd and just bringing the kids up just to see. This needs to turn into a developmental year because all these minor leaguers don't have a minor league season. So you might as well just throw them into the fire and see, especially if they're on the 40, man.
That's why I was shocked when the Willie Elvis move to the IL. DeMarcus Evans was a perfect candidate. Needed a bullpen piece and got shafted.
Who'd they bring up? They brought up I don't know why I'm blanking. I've done a lot of reading the last few days. I've been focused on playoff hockey and Mavericks playoff basketball, so I've done some juggling here. I'm blanking on who they brought up, but it's nothing that excited you.
Kyle Cody and Yadiel Rivera were the two. Oh,
Kyle Cody got put on the big league squad?
Mm-hmm.
So is he going to be a bullpen? They're not going to start him, are they? That fresh off Tommy John, I doubt he's just going to be stretched out enough right now. So I'm guessing he would be just a short inning guy. kind of like what Taylor Hearn's been.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's another. I mean, I think that was a good trade by who they traded. They traded Keone Kella to go get him. I mean, that's a shrewd JD move that people don't give any credit for.
Right, exactly.
Now the problem is has Tyler Hearn turned into the player we thought? I don't know. I think his command is kind of. That's why has struggled at times at the big league level. I mean, in the here and now, can he be a decent lefty out of the pen? I don't know. You might want to pick your spots with him, but I feel like once again we're having to settle for a reliever when we were promised a starter. So again, development. Like if there's one thing I could just change about the club, that's what it would be.
Exactly.
Be development. And I know people that work on the baseball ops side that I'm actually friends with, and I feel bad sometimes being very critical, but at some point you're like, dude, some of these guys got to hit, you know? They just got to hit.
Definitely. And we'll see what happens in this Seattle series, and then we'll have some fun with Oakland, Los Angeles, Houston.
And it feels like Houston, like every other series the rest of the way until the season's over, right? I think there's a few other AL West teams. There's not much more NL play, right?
After you have the Dodgers for 3
more.
and then a quick 2-gamer in Arizona.
Yeah, that's right.
And then that's it. And that was a fun 2-gamer at home against Arizona.
Yeah, they're playing better here lately too. Yeah, I mean, I knew it would be tough because I think both divisions. I didn't think the West would be this bad on the bottom side. I really didn't. I thought that the Angels would be better, and I kind of felt like the Mariners are where they are. But I felt like the Angels would be better, and I knew that the NL West would be tough just because look when you have a Dodgers in your division. And you have 3 other teams that you feel like could easily make a wild card. That's a good division.
And then you lose 2 of 3 against the bottom of the NL West in San Francisco.
And I'm honestly surprised the Rockies are as good as they are. But
it's going to probably tumble a little bit.
Because I think their pitching's kind of smoke and mirrors. But got that lineup, I mean, they can. We've seen what they can do.
We've been saying that for how long with the Rockies? It seems to be the same.
Pitching's their issue. But the problem is with us is offense is our issue and bullpen's our issue. And now Mike Minor's an issue, and defense has never been good. So
that's what you're saying. Like, if I told you without looking at record, and you're watching them play day in and day out the Rangers, and I told you this club is 10-14, you'd be like,
"There's no way."
What?
There's just no way. But and again, to go back to my Woody rant, like I got to see more. I got to see better out of just in-game, matching wits with the other manager. I got to see more. I know we're still developing an opinion, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he might not be as good as we all think. Like being a Dodgers assistant, that looks good because the Dodgers were really good, but how much did Chris Woodward really have to do with how good that team is? I think a lot of coaches would have looked good coaching that team the past, 5 years and what feels like in perpetuity now with how loaded they are.
I think you could say the same thing with especially, Julio Rangel just did his second year and never been a pitching coach. And you look at Luis Ortiz. It was such I mean, you can say if the Joey Gallo improvement was really his doing, that's something you can put a plus on.
No question about that.
But what's next on the list?
I know. And I mean, I don't know how much steroids aided Rudy Jaramillo's mystique from the 90s. I mean, we can only assume. But it feels weird, like the hitting instructor situation for a while has been kind of weird, like it's never been quite settled. Like Anthony Iapoce was, I guess, did some good things, but he also lost his job. And it just feels like I don't know, as much as I want Luis Ortiz to work out, I just don't know, man. Just like I just don't know about Woody. I mean, it's and that's probably easier to say when you're watching bad players play, because players make the manager. That's everything.
Right, exactly. How much of it is, you could be the messenger and provide but it's up to your players to perform, and they're not. How much of it is manager, and just like, what happened with Ian Jabot, how much is that was his own doing, and how much was ordered by the Rangers bench?
Oh, I'm pretty sure the code red was given. I'm pretty sure. I mean, and that's why the suspension happens. Like you can only assume that's why the suspension happens.
Right, exactly. But then you don't have 100% proof on that.
Sure.
I mean,
and you never will.
Right. You can form your own conclusions, just like anything. Was it intentional or not?
Just
you
like
can
we
form your
have
own
here.
conclusions.
That's what we do in sports talk. We always form our own conclusions, and most of the time they're wrong. Like I've been ranting this week, like on my podcast, the Rangers on Deck podcast. I just
Check
went
it out.
off. I went off for a good 30 minutes yesterday, just about all the stuff we've talked about, and I did it in a slightly less measured manner and a lot more frustration because
You're a lot more elegant today.
Well, I've been off the air for a while. Like yesterday, I did morning drive with Rich and Soroy, which is a lot of fun. I mean, I had a blast, and any P1s that listen this week, thank you, because it was a real pleasure. But yeah, you get up at 4 a.m., you do a whole show, you're kind of whipped, then you go sit down, and then you start thinking about all the things we've had to think about this week, and just the angry visceral reaction happens. So I've tried to temper myself a little bit today. I'm still pretty mad, but I've had a few hours. I've done some chores. I mowed the yard today, and now I got to go be my daughter's Uber driver pretty soon. So
vent out your frustration on the other drivers or on the
Oh
lawn.
no, it's fine. I mean, I don't mind. I mean, I'm pretty chill behind the wheel, but just the blood pressure's gotten high with the baseball team this week, so hopefully they can, just not be a national embarrassment for a few days or maybe the rest of the year. That'd be nice.
I think that part's going to
be out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean?
Though I think it's going to blow over a little bit once you get to the end of the month and to the beginning of the month.
You say that, Alex, but then the trade deadline happens. And what if a market doesn't develop, which probably that's going to be the case? Then it turns into, especially with what I do on the sports talk, it's like, well, JD couldn't make it happen.
I'm talking about the unwritten rule stuff. That's
the unwritten, that'll
blow over.
That'll blow over.
National wise, there's gonna be no. This thing, it's been going on. The whole JD thing's been going on for. I mean,
and it's over the next 10 days. It's just gonna get ramped up. And look, I don't like to criticize other media members because we all have to work together, but just the drivel that Mac Engel decided to write today just because Willie Calhoun got hurt, and he takes every chance he can. It's like he took the mantle from Randy Galloway to try to criticize John Daniels at every possible opportunity, and he did that again today, and it just makes me sick because even though JD might need to move on and this club might need to completely hit the reset button, and if that doesn't include John Daniels, so be it, but to take swipes at him and act like he's been the problem for so long, it's anything but. It just makes me crazy. So I'm getting all pissed off again. Like just even invoking Mac Engel right now, sorry.
Found your buttons to push.
Yeah.
I found it.
And it's weird because like otherwise, I've been in social situations with him. He's fine, but he just I feel like he's doing like the Skip Bayless bit where he just says something to say it just to get a reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think that's a good place for journalism personally.
No.
But journalism
bring in your personality, and if that's the kind of personality you want to relay, then that's the kind of personality you want to relay.
I know.
I bring out the awkward, bad takes, but interesting stuff, and that's the personality that I go through.
That's okay. But you're yourself, and that's good. That's what we all need to be. Don't fabricate crap just to have an agenda or, cater to a certain percentage of your readership or your viewership or your listeners. I don't know. That doesn't set well with me. But Look, there's going to be plenty of ink spilled and plenty of segments burned and plenty of podcasts recorded where people are going to have their takes on things. Just realize that it's not in a good situation and change is coming and it's probably needed.
We got 36 games in 38 days.
It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of pain, Alex. A lot of pain. So much chances for pain. But I mean, that's the beautiful thing about baseball is we don't have to sit around. It's not like the NFL where you have to wait a week. It's not like college football where you have to wait a week. Even the NBA, you have to wait 2-3 days sometimes. Maybe not now with the playoffs with every other day, but in general, that's why I love baseball because the last 4 games suck, but you have a chance to turn the page tonight and make it a little bit better, and that's the beauty of the sport.
That's what I like too. So you go in today against Seattle, see what happens. Who knows? Maybe they come out, like you said, victorious 2 of 3. Maybe they go out against Oakland. Again, it's unlikely.
Don't get swept. But I mean, honestly,
but they were in all 3 games.
True, but
against the A's.
But like I said, that might be the best thing to expedite this thing moving to a different place where it probably needs to go. is them getting crushed next week, which I'm bracing. I'm buckling up for that right now. I'm putting on my my seatbelt and make sure my Hans device is ready to go, just so we can brace for that impact of things falling off the cliff. So I don't know.
And, you go through like I said, 10 and 11 in games decided by less than 5 runs. You evaluate that how you want to look. You can look at that as a very negative. You can look at that as a positive, as in, well, they've only been blown out 3 times this year. So to evaluate, I know for me, I know it seems like I'm a very forgiving. That's not the case, but I think, like you said, it's a different feel to it. The fact that they aren't playing their best baseball, who knows? They may. Baseball's a funny game. Did you think that when you woke up Monday, you'd be seeing 4 consecutive grand slams given up in 4 days? No.
No, but I did text my Diamond Talk co-host Ty Walker. I said, you know what, the Padres are on like a 4 or 5 game losing streak. I fully expect them to win 3 or 4 from Texas, just because the pitching matchups I was looking at and just the talent they have. And it's not going to be all. It's not. Texas isn't going to lose out. They're probably going to finish under 500, but maybe not much under 500. But I think we're all realizing that we need to take a look at the bigger picture and not worry about this season. And if you do make some trades, then you need to bring some kids up and have them develop, because this page needs to be turned, sadly. And look, it's been a good shoot. It's been.
But I don't think you need to be way too hasty as well.
Man, I don't know. I disagree. I think you need to be swift, and I think you need to do something with conviction, and I think you need to do it sooner rather than later, because not being hasty, I think, has gotten us where it is the past few years, to be quite honest with you. And I felt like there's some prudence to what they've done the last few years, and I understand where they're coming from, but I'm to the point now where it's like, look, let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just go. I mean, like I said, it's been a good 11 years of baseball. It really has. There's only been a couple of years that have been really quite bad. Otherwise, it's always been somewhat competitive, and there's been some golden years in there too. And most franchises can't say that, and most front offices can't say that. And maybe it's just time to, like I said, mash the reset button. And I hope that, I hope it's not as painful as I think it's going to be, but sometimes that's life. Sometimes you need to endure that pain to, better yourself on the other end and enjoy things again. And I feel like that's part of the evolution of being a sports fan. It is
the highs, the lows. It's all part.
It is. It's sure. Like the Mavericks. I mean, the Mavericks are a great example. They had their first playoff win since 2016 the other day, and it's their first playoff win without Dirk since 1988. And they had to be bad for years. I mean, they had to get that lottery pick to get Luka, and. Yep. Basketball is a totally different animal than baseball, just because a few guys can totally change your fortunes. But, sometimes you got to be bad for a while. And I just hope that the powers that be on the front office allow JD and company to maybe spend a little bit this winter. I don't think that's going to happen. So if that's not going to happen, you need to try to worry about drafting and developing, and maybe a fresh set of eyes could be the best thing for the franchise. And that hurts me to say, but that's where we are.
Unfortunately, yeah, sometimes you have to just say this is where we're at and make an admit to yourself. I don't want to say admit you have a problem, but admit there is a problem. Yeah. That's the hardest thing as far as the fandom goes.
Absolutely. Alex, that was fun, man.
Well, Sean.
It's therapeutic more than anything, right? I've had now a number of opportunities on a podcast the last few days to just flesh out all these feelings and stuff. So, I mean, I don't know if this is helping anybody, honestly, but it's sharing ideas and it's sharing thoughts. And I feel like some of the stuff we're talking about is kind of common thoughts that a lot of people have. And if this helps, you get you through this really bad patch of Ranger baseball, then I'm glad that we could be part of that,
MD, Alex Plink, Sean Bass, MD.
Oh, no,
Listen to people's problems.
I'm the guy on the couch. Believe me.
Sean, thank you so much for joining. You can follow Sean Bass. It's Sean C. Bass on Twitter. Again, Rangers on Deck podcast. Very, very entertaining. And if you want to see Sean ranting, because who doesn't want to see that?
Yeah, they're doing video now. They're doing video now with our podcast, which is a new development. So I'm having to dress up kind of sometimes, but then there's some mornings where I'm only wearing a ball cap like you had yesterday. So It is what it is. I mean,
That's how I do when I.
I'm just so used to radio where nobody can see you, and now it's like everything's, let's put it out there on video.
You gotta put a shirt on. You gotta put pants on. You gotta put shoes on.
Wearing pants, but it is what it is. But yeah, Alex, that was fun, man. Let's do it again sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at aplinktx, DallasSportsFanatic.com/Texas Rangers for all your Texas Rangers news. Rangers baseball nation. Again, I'm here for you.
Hang in there.
Hang in there. That is the motto of the 2020 season.
Yeah, that should be the hashtag. Hang in there.
Instead of this together we hashtag hang in there.
Just try to survive.
I'm gonna start using that from now on.
Hashtag hang in there. Okay, I'll start doing that too. All right, Alex, good talking to you, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sean, and enjoy.
See you soon.